Hey guys, tonight we're going to find out why you wouldn't survive a single day building the Great Pyramid. Before the sun even clears the horizon, you'll already be wishing it would set again. In less than an hour, the rope will carve a groove into your shoulder so deep it feels permanent. By midday, the sand will be hot enough to cook the skin from your feet. And by the time the last light drains from the sky, you'll wonder how anyone, thousands of years ago, could call this a job instead of a slow execution. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wait to the sound of wood hitting sand, a heavy, deliberate thud that repeats like a drum beat. Somewhere out there, on the far side of these dunes, sledges are being dropped in place. The rhythm is as familiar as your own heartbeat, and just as unavoidable. It means the day has started whether you're ready or not. The air is still thick from the night. It's not the cool pre-dawn air you might expect, it's heavy, stale, like the inside of a clay oven that's just been turned down. The sand under your back holds the night's heat like a hoarder, refusing to let it go. When you sit up, the grains cling to your sweat-damped skin, each one a tiny ember. You brush yourself off and glance around. The rest of your crew is stirring, their movements slow, as though speed might wake the heat faster. You see the familiar shapes, men tying on their short linen kilts, little more than strips of cloth that will be soaked through in an hour. No boots, no gloves, just bare skin, and whatever calluses time has built. From beyond the ridge, a faint smell drifts in wet sand and river mud. The Nile is close enough for its scent to travel, but not close enough for you to drink from it freely. That water belongs to the project, and the project decides how much you get. The guard's voice slices through the morning. You can't see him yet, but the tone is unmistakable, half command, half threat. He's calling for the foreman, for the tally, for the first team to line up. You know the drill. No one wants to be last in line. Last in line means the worst rope, the roughest patch of ramp, the heaviest block. You stand, your feet sinking slightly into the cool top layer of sand, only to hit the warmer grit below. It's a reminder that, in a few hours, this ground will be hot enough to raise blisters in minutes. The first sight of the pyramid today still manages to stop you for a second. Even unfinished, it rises from the desert like it was carved from the bones of the earth. From here, you can see the ramps snaking up its sides, each one dotted with tiny, moving figures, other crews already at work. It's hard to decide if the sight fills you with pride or dread. Historians still argue whether workers here felt a sense of sacred duty or if they simply did what survival required. You join the slow shuffle toward the work site. Ahead, the foreman stands with a tally stick in one hand and a rolled piece of papyrus in the other. He'll call your name or the nickname they've given you here and assign your position for the day. You hope for a midline slot, not at the front, where you set the pace, and not at the back, where the rope jerks hardest. Beside you, an older worker rubs a dark paste onto his shoulders. You've seen it before: crocodile dung mixed with oil, an early attempt at sunscreen. Quirky. Definitely. Effective. The man's skin is a patchwork of deep brown and peeling pink, so the jury's still out. Some say it works. Others swear by a smear of ochre mixed with animal fat. Historians still debate whether these concoctions were genuine sun protection or just rituals passed down as tradition. A boy runs past, with a goatskin bag slung over his shoulder. You hear the faint slosh of water inside, but you know it's not for ya, not yet. His job is to dampen the sand in front of the sledges so they slide a little easier. Every drop is counted. At the crest of the first dune, you pause. Below, the starting point is laid out like a stage, teams lining up with ropes, guards walking the perimeter, the first stones of the day already lashed to wooden runners. The blocks are pale, almost glowing in the early light, and big enough to make you feel small in ways you'd rather not. The guard catches your eye and taps the coiled whip at his side. It's not a threat, it's a reminder, and maybe a warning not to get lost in thought. The day will demand every ounce of focus you have, and losing it can mean losing more than that. You take your place in line, feeling the grit under your feet, the dry pull in your throat, the weight of the rope you'll soon shoulder. The foreman looks up from his list. eyes flicking over you before he marks something on the papyrus. You've been assigned to the second team. Not the worst luck, but not the best either. Modern reality check. Tomorrow morning, you might groan about getting out of bed to face a spreadsheet, a meeting, a commute. Here, your commute is a slow walk toward a 2-ton block of limestone, a length of rope, and a ramp that will climb higher than your legs want to go. And you can't call in sick. The second team forms around you, a loose half-circle of tired faces and stiff backs. Some you've worked beside for weeks, others are new fresh arrivals from the village upriver, still carrying the wide-eyed look of men who haven't yet learned the rhythm of the ramp. You can spot them easily, their linen still white, their hands still smooth, their stances too casual. By midday, they'll stand differently. The foreman steps forward, tally stick in one hand, papyrus scroll in the other. He calls out positions in quick bursts, his voice flat from repetition. Front, middle, Ray doesn't ask who wants what. Each assignment is a sentence for the day. Your name well, the nickname they've given you here comes sooner than you expect. Lead pull, the foreman says, jabbing the tally stick toward the thickest rope. A murmur ripples through the crew. Lead pull means you'll be in front, setting the pace. Every step you take will decide whether the block behind you inches forward or stubbornly refuses to budge. You glance at the man assigned behind your broad-shouldered worker with a bandaged knee. He meets your eye briefly, and you both understand, if either of you falters, the other will feel it instantly. The rope binds you together for the day, whether you like it or not. 2 boys arrive with the equipment, coils of rope thick as your wrist, rough with the fibers of twisted papyrus and palm. The texture alone can skin your palms if you're careless. You've learned to drape it over one shoulder, across the chest, letting the pull anchor into your collarbone and back instead of tearing at your arms. Still, no technique erases the pain, it only spreads it out. As the boys unroll the rope, you catch the faint scent of something metallic in the air. Down by the base of the ramp, carpenters are shaping new wooden runners for the sledges. The sound of their adzes carries clearly, a hollow tuk-tuk-tuk followed by the sigh of shavings curling away. The runners have to be perfect. Even a small flaw can catch on the sand, jerking the whole load to a stop. Quirky tidbit. Some crews carve small protective symbols into their runners before a haul-axe for life, scarabs for rebirth, or crude little faces to watch the path ahead. Whether the charms work or not, you've noticed fewer accidents on the marked sledges. Historians still argue whether these carvings were tolerated by overseers or done in secret, hidden where only the crew would see them. The foreman gestures toward your block for the day. It waits like an animal at Reester, slab of pale limestone taller than you, quarried upriver and ferried here on a barge. A faint dark streak runs down one side, where river water clung before the desert air claimed it. You run a hand over the surface and feel the cold still trapped inside. It won't last long. A guard paces nearby, whip coiled but ready. His eyes track every movement, lingering on the new men. You've seen how it goes. The first to lag gets a sharp reminder across the back, more about keeping rhythm than punishment, though it accomplishes both. Historians still argue about the exact labour system here, whether workers were slaves, conscripted farmers during the Nile's flood season, or paid specialists. Whatever the truth, you know this, on the ramp, titles mean nothing. Rope doesn't care who you are. You step into position. The rope is looped into your hands now, its roughness promising a day's worth of small, grinding pain. Behind you, the rest of the team slots in, each man leaning forward slightly, testing his stance. The foreman raises his arm. A whistle pierces the air, sharp enough to make you blink. That's the signal. You lean forward. The rope tightens, pulling against your chest. At first, the block doesn't move until it never does. Then there's a shudder, a creak of wood under strain, and the faintest crunch as sand gives way beneath the runners. Your muscles protest instantly, as if they're already at the end of the day. The guard's shadow falls over you, long and thin in the morning light. He taps the whip against his leg, not in threat, but in warning. Keep moving. You grit your teeth and drive forward, the block finally sliding into motion behind you. Modern reality check. Your orders today might arrive in an email, read over a cup of coffee, with the option to ignore them for a few minutes. Here, The order is a whistle, the deadline is now, and the consequence of falling behind is measured in scars, not missed memos. The ramp rises ahead of you like a challenge, carved into the desert. From here, it doesn't look steep until you start climbing. The surface is a mix of compacted sand and crushed limestone, dampened just enough to hold its shape. Each step pushes back at you, as if the ramp itself resents the intrusion. The block behind you groans on its runners, the sound low and animal, like a beast reluctant to move. Every few feet, the rope tugs hard as the men in the back adjust their grip. You feel each adjustment instantly, a jolt through your chest and spine. It's a silent language of strain, pull harder, slow down, brace for the next incline. The first corner is always the worst. The ramp curves slightly to the left, and you have to angle your body so the block doesn't swing wide and scrape the retaining wall. The foreman walks alongside, shouting short commands: left, steady, pull. His voice cuts through the heavy breathing of the crew, the hiss of rope fibers stretching under load, and the dull thud of sandals hitting sand. Halfway up, the first rise, your calves start to burn. The heat hasn't peaked yet, but it's rising with each breath. The sun is a white disk just above the horizon now, turning the pale stone of the pyramid into a blinding surface. You squint against the glare, eyes watering, and wonder not for the first time how many men have gone half-blind from years of working in this light. Historians still debate whether workers had any form of eye protection. Some evidence suggests strips of dark cloth were tied around the head like primitive sunglasses, but no one agrees on how common they were. Beside you, the man with the bandaged knee grunts with every pull. His injury slows him just enough that you feel the slack and jerk of the rope more often. The guard notices too. He drifts closer, the shadow of the whip falling across both of you. You keep moving, hoping to mask your partner's lag, because here, mercy isn't the default setting. A group of water carriers appears at the top of the incline, their goatskin bags swinging at their sides. You catch the smell of river water, faintly metallic, faintly alive. The carriers pour measured splashes onto the ramp in front of the runners, darkening the sand just enough to make the sledges slide a little easier. It's a trick the Egyptians have known for centuries. The right amount of moisture reduces friction by half. Too much, and you're pulling through mud. One boy, younger than the rest, lingers for a moment to watch you work. His eyes are wide, his face streaked with dust. He says nothing, just studies the strain in your arms, the way your shoulders hunch forward, the sweat darkening the linen across your back. Then Er's gone, running to the next team before anyone notices his delay. Quirky fact. Some of these boys are sons of the workers, brought here not to labour yet, but to learn the craft, the discipline, the unspoken rules. By the time they're your age, the ramp will feel more like home than the village ever did. The incline eases, for a moment, and the block gains a little momentum. You almost stumble forward, catching yourself before the rope jerks tight again. It's the closest thing to a break you'll get before midday. Modern reality check. When your project gains momentum in the office, it's a reason to celebrate. Emails fly, coffee flows, maybe even an early lunch. Here, momentum just means you'd better hold on, because if the block slides too fast, it can take out half your crew in seconds. The foreman calls for a pause. You drop the rope to your side, flexing your hands, shaking out your shoulders. The relief is immediate, but temporary. The rope's bite remains in the grooves of your skin. You glance up the ramp, and the top still looks far away. The sun's higher now, and the day hasn't even started to show its teeth. Somewhere behind you, a man coughs a deep, rattling sound that doesn't belong to the morning. You don't turn to look. You've learned not to. Illness here isn't treated. It's endured, and those who can't endure simply don't return the next day. Historians still argue whether there were dedicated medical teams for the workers, or if basic care was handled by the crews themselves. The whistle blows again, sharp and urgent. Breaks over. You lean into the rope, the block shudders forward, and the climb resumes. The pyramid waits above, its shadow still far from where you stand. By the time the whistle for the midday halt cuts through the air, your whole body hums with the dull ache of overuse. It's not the sharp pain of injury, at least not yet, but the deep, grinding fatigue that settles into joints and muscles like sand filling a jar. The rope hangs from your shoulder in a limp curve, the fibers damp and dark where your sweat has soaked through. You step aside, letting the next team pass with their block, and follow the slow drift of workers toward the eating area. Area is generous, it's just a section of shaded ground near a low wall, the shade barely holding against the noonday sun. The smell of food, such as it is, reaches you before you see it. A faint, dry aroma of baked grain and something earthier lentils, maybe, if the ration gods are feeling kind. More often than not, it's just bread and a thin, watery porridge. Historians still debate whether workers on the pyramids had a standard diet or if rations varied wildly depending on rank and season. Some records suggest dried dates or onions were handed out occasionally, a treat meant to keep spirits up. You take your portion from a boy sitting cross-legged with a basket at his side. The bread is hard at the edges, soft in the middle, shaped into rough discs that fit neatly into your palm. Beside the basket, a clay pot holds the porridge, a pale, watery mix that smells faintly sour but fills the stomach. There's no table, no chair. You drop to the ground with the rest, cross-legged or hunched, elbows on knees. Around you, men eat in silence or talk in low murmurs, too tired to waste energy on conversation. A skin of water is passed around. The goat skin bulges slightly, the liquid inside sloshing with a faint, stale smell. When it reaches you, you tip it back carefully. No one gets more than a mouthful or two. The water tastes faintly of leather and something metallic, as if it's been standing too long. You swallow anyway, because thirst is louder than taste. Quirky fact. Some workers flavor their water with a pinch of crushed herbs or even a scrap of fermented barley bread, claiming it makes it cleaner and easier to drink. Whether that's true or just wishful thinking, you can't say. As you chew, a gust of wind pushes hot air across the camp, lifting a curtain of dust from the ground. It settles on your bread before you can shield it, but you eat it anyway. Dust is part of every meal here. You lean back against the low wall, stretching your legs out in the shade. The moment your body starts to relax, the foreman's voice cuts through the air again. Not yelling this time, just a reminder that rest doesn't last. Modern reality check. Your lunch break might feel short when your phone buzzes with an email or your meeting runs long. Here, lunch is however long it takes for the foreman to decide the sun's position means enough, and instead of heading back to a desk, you're heading back to the ramp, to the rope, to the block that has been waiting like a stubborn pet. A small commotion breaks out near the ration boy. A man from another crew complains about his bread being mouldy, holding it up for the foreman to see. The foreman doesn't even look at it before saying, "Eat around it." There's no spare. Food here isn't wasted, not when every bite costs hours of someone else's labor to grow, harvest, grind and bake. The whistle blows, shorter this time. Men stand, brushing dust from their kilts, slipping back into the lines that will lead them up the ramp again. You push yourself upright, feeling the stiffness in your knees, the slight tremor in your hands. Your stomach is full enough to quiet its complaints, but not enough to make you comfortable. You glance once at the pyramid before turning back to your place in line. Its shadow has shifted slightly, but it's still far from touching the base of the ramp. The day isn't over. It's not even close. The second half of the day starts, but your stomach has its own schedule. About an hour after the major meal, the familiar twist comes pressure low in your gut, a warning that nature doesn't care about work shifts, pyramids, or foremen. There's no polite way to handle this here. You glance toward the edge of the camp where a narrow path snakes out into the open desert. A few others are already heading that way, moving with the stiff-legged walk of men hoping to make it before things get urgent. The latrine is not what the word suggests in the modern world. There's no enclosed stall, no porcelain seat, no flush handle. It's just a shallow pit dug into the sand, marked by a ring of scattered stones so no one steps into it by mistake. The wind carries away some of the smell, but not enough. Flies rise in a lazy cloud as the next man approaches. Historians still argue whether there were more permanent toilet structures in workers' camps or if everything was handled like this, temporary pits covered and moved regularly. Archaeologists have found waste sites with layers of ash and lime, possibly used to control the stench and slow the spread of disease, but no one agrees on how widely such measures were used. You crouch down, feet planted awkwardly on uneven ground. Privacy doesn't exist here. The most you get is the unspoken courtesy of others looking away. There's no paper, of course. You reach for one of the smooth stones or handfuls of dried grass scattered nearby. The stones are cold from the morning air, but will be hot later in the day. You try not to think about where they've been before. A water jar sits a few meters away, guarded by a boy who makes sure no one takes more than a splash. Washing isn't about feeling clean, it's about making sure you can grip the rope again without slipping. You dip your hands quickly, rubbing them together until the grit loosens, then step back so the next man can have his turn. Quirky tidbit. Some believe certain stones were kept specifically for royal work, slightly smoother, slightly larger, and therefore a minor luxury. Whether that's a myth or a rare perk, no one in your crew has ever seen such a stone. As you walk back toward the ramp, you feel the grit still clinging under your nails, the faint residue of the pit in the air around you. You wonder what your own bathroom at home will smell like after this shift, if you even notice anymore. Modern reality check. You might complain when a public restroom runs out of soap, or when the stall lock is broken. Here, the idea of 4 walls and a door around your business is fantasy, something you wouldn't even waste time imagining. By the time you rejoin your crew, the foreman's already pacing. The block waits in place, the rope lying slack in the sand, like it knows the pause is over. Your shoulders tighten automatically, as if preparing for the weight before you even touch it. The whistle sounds. You lean forward again, rope across your chest, and the day resumes and pull closer to sunset, one pull further from comfort. By the time the sun tips past its highest point, the heat has turned your linen kilt into a damp rag and your skin into a gritty paste of sweat, dust, and whatever else the wind has blown your way. Your forearms shine with a thin layer of salt from evaporated sweat. You scratch at an itch on your neck and end up with a streak of mud where skin met dirt. When the day's last whistle finally echoes across the site, the rope slips from your shoulders like a snake uncoiling, and you're left standing there, not sure whether to cheer or just collapse. You follow the slow, tired migration toward the workers' camp, and that's when you face the next choice: try to wash or just surrender to the filth until tomorrow. There's no bathhouse waiting. No queue for a shower with clean tiles and warm steam. Instead, you head toward the communal water jar, an amphora taller than your knee, sitting in the shade of a half-collapsed canopy. It holds water hauled up from a nearby well, and the surface already has a faint shimmer of dust settling on it. A man dips a small clay bowl in, takes a quick sip, then splashes the rest over his head. Historians still debate whether workers here had regular bathing stations or if most washing was improvised like this. Some records describe larger basins used by higher-ranking crews, possibly even with perfumed oils, but for most labourers, water was too precious for more than the occasional splash. You kneel beside the jar, take a half bowl for yourself, and tip it slowly over your face and neck. The water is shockingly cool at first, making you gasp. Then the chill fades, replaced by the rough scrape of grit as you rub your skin with your hands. It's less washing and more redistributing dirt. Quirky tidbit. Some men here swear by using sand as a scrub, grabbing a handful and rubbing it into their skin to strip away sweat and grease. It works, in a way, though it also leaves your skin red and raw. You try it on your forearms, watching the pale streaks appear where the dirt comes off, only for new dust to settle moments later. There's a smell in the air now, smoke from the cooking fires, sweat from hundreds of bodies, and the faint tang of the nearby waste pits carried by the wind. It clings to you no matter how much you splash and scrub. You watch one of the older men pour his entire half bowl over his head in a single motion, water running down his back in thin streams. He closes his eyes like Hez in some private oasis. Then he reaches for a small jar, dabs something under his arms, and grins when he sees you looking. "Mud," he says, holding it out. "Better than nothing." You sniff is right. The earthy smell almost masks the sweat. Almost. Modern reality check. You might choose between lavender, citrus, or ocean breeze body wash, stepping into a hot shower at exactly the temperature you like. Here, your choice is between sandpapering yourself with actual sand or using the same half bowl of dusty water as 20 other people. By the time you're done, the light has shifted to that molten gold that makes every shadow stretch. You pat yourself dry with the edge of your kilt pointless, since the fabric is as damp as you are, and start toward the sleeping tents. You don't feel clean, but you feel less sticky. And around here, that's the closest thing to luxury. The tents look like a mirage from a distance, soft shapes flapping gently in the evening breeze, promising rest. But as you step inside one, reality replaces the illusion. The air is thick, warmer than outside, and laced with the smell of unwashed bodies, damp cloth, and the faint sourness of yesterday's sweat trapped in the fabric walls. Your bed is a mat made from woven reeds, laid directly on the hard, packed earth. It's not wide enough for you to stretch out fully without your feet hanging off the end, so you curl slightly, knees bent, side pressed against the reed fibers. They creak under your weight, the texture leaving faint patterns on your skin. Historians still argue whether workers' camps were arranged in neat, organized rows or thrown together from whatever materials were available. Some archaeological finds suggest stone foundations under certain huts, possibly for skilled artisans or higher-ranked crews, while most laborers likely slept in tents like this, or even under the open sky. You drop onto your mat, the day's work still buzzing in your arms and shoulders. You close your eyes, expecting darkness, but light leaks in from the tent flaps. Outside, the fires burn low in shallow pits, their orange glow flickering against the canvas. Soundscape is alive, men coughing from the day's dust, low murmurs of conversation, an occasional sharp laugh from a card game somewhere nearby. Somewhere at the far end of camp, a donkey brays in protest, answered by a chorus of barking dogs. You pull your kilt up over your shoulder like a blanket, even though the air is still warm. It's not for warmth, it's to keep the insects from finding your skin. Worky tidbit. Some workers smeared themselves with a paste made from crushed herbs and animal fat to ward off biting flies. It smelled terrible, but apparently so did the flies, and the two others kept their distance from each other. You shift on the mat, trying to find a position where the lumps in the ground don't dig into your hips. Every time you start to drift, some new discomfort wakes you, an itch on your leg, a rock pressing into your shoulder blade, the muffled cough of the man beside you. There's no pillow, no soft hum of a fan to lull you, just the rhythm of the camp settling in for the night. Modern reality check. You might complain if your memory foam mattress is too firm or if your room isn't cool enough. Here, you're grateful if the ground under your mat is mostly flat and if the tent flap stays shut long enough to keep the mosquitoes out. Eventually, fatigue starts to win. Your breathing slows, and the outside noise fades into a dull background hum. The pyramid looms in your mind's eye even now, its silhouette burned into you after so many hours of staring up at it. Tomorrow, you'll wake before the sun and climb the ramp again. But for now, you let your body sink into the mat, hoping the few hours ahead will feel longer than they are. The first sound you register isn't the tune, it's the whistle. A short, sharp note that cuts clean through the haze of half-sleep. You blink into darkness, disoriented, because the sky outside the tent flap is still more black than blue. The fires have burned down to faint red glows, and the camp is moving like a slow. Its hide-buddies rising, stretching, pulling on the same linen kilts they slept in. Your back feels stiff from the reed mat, and your shoulders ache as if the rope were still pressed into them. You push yourself upright, the air cool for now, almost pleasant in a way that makes you wish the day could freeze at this moment. But it won't. You know what's coming. You step out into the pre-dawn dimness, the sand under your feet cold and damp from the night. Some men hunch over small bowls of grain mash, eating quickly before the foreman starts barking. Others just stand and stare at the pyramid in the distance, like they're trying to figure out how many more days a year sit will take before the thing is finished. Historians still argue whether the work crews rotated often to avoid complete physical collapse, or if men stayed on the same job for months on end. Some records hint at rest days, but the archaeological evidence layers of wear in the ramps, tools showing continuous use suggests rest wasn't common. The foreman's voice breaks whatever stillness the morning had left. Move to the ramp, he calls, and the shuffle of feet turns into a steady march. You find your team and take your place, the rope already coiled on the sand, waiting like an animal that knows it owns you. Someone behind you yawns loud enough to make the man in front glance back. Another adjusts the strip of cloth over his head to keep the rope from cutting into his neck. Everyone has their small tricks, folding the kilt into a thicker pad, shifting the rope slightly each pull, but nothing truly works. The rope always wins. Worky tidbit. Some crews sang in low, rhythmic chants while pulling, partly to keep time, partly to distract themselves from the monotony. Whether it made the work easier or just filled the silence is up for debate. The sun breaks over the horizon just as you lean forward into the first pull. The light is sharp, not warm yet, but bright enough to sting your eyes. The block groans. Against the sand, the ramp biting into your calves as you push forward. Around you, the morning cool evaporates in minutes, replaced by the rising heat. Modern reality check. Your morning routine might include coffee, scrolling your phone, maybe even a slow start. Here, morning is a command, not a time. The sun is just a clock you can't argue with, and breakfast, if you even had it, burns away in your stomach before the first hour's work is done. As the ramp stretches ahead, you let your mind drift in the only way it can, not by escaping, but by breaking the day into pieces. One pull to the next marker stone, another to the curve in the ramp, another until the foreman lets you breathe again. And in the back of your mind, you know you'll be doing this until the sun is straight overhead, and then again until it sinks low enough to turn the sky gold. This isn't a shift, it's a loop. One that only ends when the pyramid is finished or you are. By mid-morning, the sun is no longer an object. In the sky it's a force pressing down on you from every angle. The light bounces off the pale limestone chips scattered across the ramp, stabbing into your eyes until you squint so hard your temples ache. The air itself feels heavier, as if every breath takes more effort to pull in. The rope digs into your chest in a steady rhythm now, each pull matched by the hiss of sand under the stone block. Your hands have long since stopped feeling like skin, they're just tools, raw at the edges, calloused in the center. The fibers of the rope bite deeper every time you adjust your grip, but you don't dare let go. Historians still argue whether crews worked in shorter shifts during the hottest months, or whether the schedule was the same year-round. There's evidence of seasonal work tied to the Nile's flooding cycle, but the blocks didn't stop moving for long. Pharaohs didn't measure time in heat advisories. You pass the halfway point on the ramp, the incline steeper here, each step a battle, against gravity. The men on either side of you breathe in unison, shoulders jerking forward with every heave. Someone mutters a curse under his breath, another lets out a grunt that's half frustration, half exhaustion. Then comes the moment you dread the stall. The block hits a patch of softer sand, sinks slightly, and refuses to budge. The foreman's voice snaps like a whip. Push. Again. Your legs tremble as you lean forward harder, the rope creaking, your teeth clenched so tight you feel the pressure in your jaw. Finally, with a groan, the block shifts, and the whole crew stumbles forward a step, catching their balance. Quirky tidbit. Some believe foremen carried small jars of water not for the workers, but to splash on the sand ahead of a block to reduce friction. Others think this was only done for ceremonial moves, when priests and officials were watching. Either way, no one here is wasting water today. The sun climbs higher, and the heat on your back is matched by the heat rising from the ramp beneath your feet. The linen sticking to your skin feels like wet paper, every movement tugging at the damp spots. You glance toward the horizon, where the shimmer of heat blurs the line between sand and sky, and for a moment, you lose track of which is which. Modern reality check. You might avoid going outside when the forecast says extreme heat. You might reschedule meetings, delay errands, or just stay inside with the air conditioner humming. Here, there's no rescheduling the pyramid. The sun could melt the horizon itself, and you would still be on this ramp, rope in hand. When the foreman finally calls a pause, you don't sit, you just stand still, head bowed, letting your arms hang heavy at your sides. The pause isn't about rest. It's about making sure no one collapses in a place where they can't be dragged out quickly. You take one slow breath, then another, feeling the hot air scrape down your throat. And then, before your heart rate even starts to settle, the whistle blows again. The block moves. The loop continues. The afternoon light shifts, but it doesn't soften. Instead, it slides into that golden glare that makes every speck of dust shine in the air. The ramp feels longer now, though you've walked it so many times you could trace every bump and groove with your eyes closed. Your legs are heavy, each step a negotiation between muscle and willpower. Your hands throb in a slow, dull rhythm. The rope's fibers have embedded their pattern into your palms, and when you release your grip for even a moment, it feels like you're peeling yourself away from it. You flex your fingers, but they only half obey. Historians still argue whether the final hours of the day were deliberately shorter to prevent complete exhaustion, or if crews simply worked until visibility failed. Some accounts mention torches along the ramps for night hauling, but no one can say for certain whether that was common practice or rare ceremonial display. The block you're moving now is smaller than the morning's load, but somehow it feels heavier. You know it's not just the stone, it's the day stacked on your back. all the hours you've already carried. You catch yourself looking for the shadow of the pyramid's peak to stretch over you, but it's still far from reaching this side. One of your crewmates stumbles, his foot slipping on loose sand, and the whole line shudders as the block jerks sideways. There's a sharp shout from the foreman, and the man straightens quickly, eyes fixed forward. Mistakes here aren't just noticed, they're remembered. Quirky tidbit. Some crews were said to have lucky ropes, patched and knotted in certain ways that they swore made the pull smoother. Whether it was real or just belief, you notice your crew's rope is one solid piece in no luck, just where. The sun begins its slow drop toward the horizon, but the heat radiates off the ramp like it's holding on to the day. Your body runs on a kind of automatic mod nowline, pull, step, breathe, repeat. The moments blur together until they're not moments anymore, just one continuous effort stretching toward the end of the shift. Modern reality check. At this hour, you might be leaving your desk, shutting your laptop, or sitting in traffic with the radio on. Here, end of the day means moving until the foreman decides there's just enough light left to stop. Finally, the whistle comes, not a pause this time, but the signal you've been waiting for. You and your crew ease the rope to the ground, the block settling into its spot with a final thud. There's no applause, no handshake, just the shared silence of men too tired to speak. You roll your shoulders once, twice, and start the slow walk back down the ramp. The sky is burning orange now, the pyramid's shadow finally long enough to touch the edge of camp. And tomorrow, you know, the shadow will be shorter again when you start, and the whole cycle will play out once more. By the time you reach camp, the sky has melted into deep orange streaked with purple, and the first stars are pushing through the dusk. The fires are already lit, their smoke curling lazily upward before vanishing into the cooling air. The smell hits you before you even see the foo grain mash, again, maybe with a pinch of herbs if someone was feeling generous. You take your place in the loose circle around one of the fire pits. The bowls are passed out, simple clay, their rims chipped from years of use. You glance inside yours, a lump of barley mash, a thin drizzle of oil, and one small piece of dried fish sitting off to the side like it wandered in by accident. Historians still argue whether pyramid workers were fed better than the average labourer, with some claiming their diets were surprisingly high in calories. Bread, onions and beer are often mentioned in records, but high in calories doesn't necessarily mean good. Tonight's meal is fuel, not flavour. You take a bite. The mash is warm, filling, and utterly bland. Fish adds a hit of salt that lingers, making you reach for the goatskin water bag. You tip it back, and the water inside tastes faintly of the leather, with a whisper of dust for good measure. It's not refreshing, it's just wet, and that's enough. Around the fire, voices rise and fall in quiet conversation. One man tells a story about a foreman who fell asleep standing up and still managed to keep his hands moving on the rope. Another boasts about how his crew moved a block in record time, though everyone suspects his adding at least a third to the truth. Quirky tidbit. Some workers carved tiny figures or scratched messages into leftover limestone chips in the evenings, little jokes or boasts to pass the time. A few of these graffiti pieces survive to this day, proof that even in the harshest work, humour found a way. The firelight flickers across faces lined with dust and fatigue. Someone laughs a short, genuine burst that's quickly swallowed by a quiet again. Beyond the circle, the rest of the camp hums softly with the sounds of low conversation, the crackle of fires, and the occasional bray of a tethered donkey. Modern reality check. At this hour, you might be scrolling through your phone while eating takeout, maybe watching a show. Here, your entertainment is the shared company of men too tired to argue and too sore to do more than sit in the glow of a flame. You finish your mash, wipe the bowl with your fingers, and set it aside. The fire is warm on your face, the air cool on your back. Your eyelids grow heavy not from comfort, but from the weight of the day pressing them down. Around you, one by one, men drift away toward their mats and tents. Soon, you'll join them, because tomorrow will come just as early, and the pyramid will still be waiting. The fires burn lower now, reduced to glowing embers that cast only enough light to make the surrounding darkness feel deeper. The camp has thinned to scattered shapes moving quietly, most men already curled on their reed mats, their bodies sinking into whatever rest they can find. You walk slowly back to your tent, the night air cool against your sunburned skin, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and the dry, mineral tang of the desert. Inside the tent, it's darker still, the walls swaying gently with each breath of wind. You lower yourself onto the mat, feeling every bone protest. Your muscles twitch without your permission, small aftershocks from the day's endless pulling. You stretch once, twice, and then lie still. Historians still argue whether workers slept through the night uninterrupted or whether the camp stirred in shifts and men guarding supplies, others watching the fires. Evidence of storage pits and simple watchtowers near certain pyramid sites hints at a more complex rhythm than just work and sleep. Outside, the desert night comes alive in a different way. Without the day's chatter and pounding footsteps, you can hear the soft skitter of insects on the sand, the occasional snap of a twig under some small creature's foot. A distant howl echoes likely a jackal, though it's far enough that you can pretend it's just the wind. From another tent, someone coughs deep and rattling before settling again into silence. You stare upward, though all you see is the tent's ceiling, its fibers outlined faintly by starlight slipping through the seams. The sounds layer over one another, a donkey shifting its weight, the creak of rope against wood as something in the camp shifts in the wind, the soft sigh of sand being moved by air. Quirky tidbit. In some digs, archaeologists have found amulets buried near workers' sleeping area, small charms of faience or carved bone, meant to ward off bad dreams or restless spirits. Whether they worked or not, you think you wouldn't mind having one now. You try to let your breathing match the desert's rhythm, slow, even, steady. Your body is exhausted, but your mind drifts in stubborn loops, the weight of the rope, the sound of the foreman's voice, the endless image of the pyramid growing stone by stone. It's strange how something so solid can live in your thoughts as something fluid, shifting, unending. Modern reality check. At night, you might put on white noise, scroll until your eyes close, or pull a blanket up to your chin. Ear, your lullaby is the desert wind, your screen is the inside of a tent, and your blanket is the same kilt you worked in. The embers outside glow fainter. Somewhere, the camp finally goes still enough that even the jackals give up calling. You close your eyes again, this time letting the darkness stay. Tomorrow, the whistle will blow. But for now, the only thing you have to carry is the quiet. The first thing you notice isn't the whistle, it's the shouting. Sharp voices cutting through the pre-dawn chill, pulling you up from whatever shallow sleep you'd managed. You push yourself upright, rubbing grit from your eyes, and see figures moving quickly outside the tent, their torches, throwing frantic shadows across the sand. Something's wrong. The usual slow, resigned pace of morning has been replaced by hurried steps and clipped orders. You pull on your sandals, if you can call them that, and step out into the cold air, which bites at your sunburn from yesterday. Near the edge of camp, a group of men huddle around a block that sits awkwardly on its side, half buried in sand. The ramp above it bears the scars of a collapse, a gouge where the block slid, a pile of crushed scaffolding near the bottom. The foreman's voice is low but urgent, and you can see the set of his jaw even from here. Historians still argue whether such accidents were common or rare. Some records suggest careful engineering minimized risks, others hint at frequent mishaps that were simply accepted as part of the process. Evidence of repaired ramps and replaced tools points toward a messy reality. Nothing this big happens without things going wrong. You join your crew, and the instructions come. Fast today, job isn't hauling up the ramp, it's recovering the fallen block. The work is heavier in a different way. Instead of the predictable pull, you're digging sand away from the stone, wedging thick wooden levers under its edge and coordinating your push so it doesn't roll onto anyone's legs. The sun rises quicker than you expect, or maybe it just feels that way because you started before the light. Sweat runs down your back by the time the block is upright again. And that's just step one. You still have to get it back up the ramp, past the point where it fell, without making the same mistake twice. Quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists believe certain workers specialized in recovery tasks like this, ancient crash teams who knew how to fix a disaster without losing too much time. Whether or not that's true, you'd gladly hand this job over to them right now. Modern reality check. If your workday starts with a crisis, you might answer emails, make phone calls, maybe reschedule meetings. Here, a crisis is a multi-ton block of stone lying in the wrong place, and rescheduling means you don't stop until it's fixed, no matter how long it takes. By the time the foreman calls a break, the sun is high enough to wash the ramp in blinding light, and the block is barely halfway up. You take a long drink from the goatskin, ignoring the taste. Around you, no one speaks much. It's the kind of morning that eats your words as quickly as your energy. Tomorrow will probably go back to the usual grind. But today, the pyramid reminded you it can fight back. By the time the block finally reaches its intended spot, the sun has begun its slow lean toward late afternoon. The ramp is littered with footprints and grooves, where the stone carved its reluctant path upward. You and your crew step back as the foreman inspects the placement, his eyes narrowing just enough to make you wonder if he'll demand one more adjustment. Then, with a curt nod, he signals the work is done. Moment isn't celebratory, there's no cheering, but there is a shared, silent relief. Shoulders drop, ropes coil loosely on the ground, and men lean against their knees, catching their breath. Your arms feel like they're made of wet clay, heavy and shapeless, yet oddly steady now that the pulling has stopped. Historians still argue whether workers mark these milestones with small rituals, maybe a shouted phrase or a shared drink. A few scraps of writing hint at informal toasts of beer after a particularly difficult haul, but nothing is certain. What is certain is the shift in the air when a hard job is finally behind you. As the light shifts, the foreman grants the rest of the day for lighter tasks, preparing tools, tidying camp, hauling smaller loads to storage. You work at half speed, the pressure eased, though the sand still finds its way into your sandals, still grinds between your teeth when you speak. Worky tidbit. Some believe certain crews gave nicknames to especially troubles and blocks, calling them the stubborn one or the sleeper, as if talking to the stone might make it move. Today's block, you decide, deserves a name you want repeat in polite company. You notice the pyramid from a new angle as you carry a few smaller stones to a staging area. The shape is sharper now, its layers climbing steadily skyward. For a moment, you imagine it finished smooth limestone casing gleaming in the sun, visible for miles. You picture someone centuries from now standing where you are, marveling at what you helped build, never knowing your name. Modern reality check. Your finished projects might be presentations, spreadsheets, or coda things that vanish in months or years. Here, the work will outlast not just your life, but entire civilizations. That's its own kind of immortality, even if no one remembers who you were. By sunset, the camp has settled again. The chaos of morning is already folding into the rhythm of routine. Tomorrow, the ramp will see another block, another pull, another test. But tonight, there's a faint sense of balance, like the pyramid allowed a small victory in exchange for all the effort it demanded. You sit by the fire with your bowl, feeling the ache in your bones, and think, maybe that's enough. Morning comes again, almost without warning. The thin light slips into your tent before the whistle, painting the inside of the canvas in a pale, dusty glow. Your body feels older than it did yesterday, yet it moves on command because that's what it's trained to do. You rise, shake the sand from your kilt, and step into the cool desert air. The camp stirs in familiar patterns now, the thud of footsteps, the rasp of rope being coiled, the muted clatter of wooden levers and stone chisels. The block from yesterday sits firmly in its place, part of the growing face of the pyramid. No one points it out, but you can't help glancing at it as you pass, a quiet acknowledgement that your hands helped set it there. Historians still argue whether workers found pride in their labour, or simply endured it as a fact of survival. Records show they were fed, housed, and in some cases even honoured, but whether that was enough to balance the toil is another question entirely. The day unfolds with the same motions you've repeated for weeks. Grip the rope, lean into the pull, match your steps to the crew's rhythm. The sun climbs, the heat sharpens, and the pyramid grows taller by the width of one more block. Worky tidbit. Some believe workers left tiny, hidden marks inside the pyramid, personal symbols etched where no one would see them again. A kind of invisible signature, saying, "I was here." You think about that as you pass the newest layer, wondering if anyone in your crew has done the same. Modern reality check. You might count down the days until a weekend, a holiday, or a vacation. Here, time is measured in layers of stone, in how much higher the shadow reaches by the end of the week. As the sun dips again, you realize the days have begun to blur. Not because they're forgettable, but because they're part of something so much larger than you, something that will still stand long after your own footprints are gone. And in that thought, strange as it is, there's a kind of peace. The fires burn low tonight, the embers casting soft pools of orange that barely touch the edges of the camp. The voices are fewer now, speaking in slow, hushed tones that dissolve into the stillness. Above, The stars spill across the sky, bright enough to make you forget how far from home you are if home is even a place you can name anymore. You stretch out on your mat, the ground firm, but familiar beneath you. The air is cooler here in the dark, carrying the faint scent of ash and the distant whisper of sand moving over stone. Your eyelids grow heavier with each breath, the sounds of the camp blending into one long, low hum. The pyramid looms in the distance, just a silhouette against the starlight now. It doesn't feel threatening tonight. It feels steady, ancient, and oddly reassuring, as if it's keeping watch while you rest. You think of the countless hands that have touched its stones before yours, and the countless more that will come after. The aches in your muscles soften, not gone, but dulled by the comfort of stillness. The rope burns fade to a quiet throb, and the heat of the day slips away entirely, replaced by the cool embrace of the desert night. You close your eyes, letting your breath slow to match the rhythm of the wind outside. The work will be there tomorrow, and the day after, and for as long as the pyramid rises. But right now, you don't have to carry it. Right now, there is only the quiet, the stars, and the slow, gentle pull of sleep.